भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवांसस्तनूभिः व्यसेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. O the Almighty Lord, let us be capable of performing sacrifices and hear auspicious sounds with our ears and see auspicious forms with our eyes, with strong and steady limbs and body remaining powerful. Let us spend our whole lifetime directing our minds to only auspicious things. Om peace, peace, peace. There is a request from one of the devotees to explain verse 1 and 2 of this Upanishad and give an elaborate explanation of these two mantras. Of course, we have dealt with very elaborately at the beginning itself, but I shall try to give you a brief explanation of the implications of these two mantras. The first mantra is this Hari Om, Om iti etat aksharamidam sarvam tasya upavyakyanam bhudam bhavat bhavishyat iti sarvam onkara eva yaccha anyat trikalatidam tadapi onkara eva. This is the first mantra which one of the students has asked me to explain. Now in this mantra, in this verse, the Upanishad tells us that all that exists within time, space and causation and all that exists beyond time, space and causation are both Onkara itself. Onkara, as I said earlier, implies this sound, the sacred sound Om. It consists of 3 syllables, A, U and Ma. Now, these 3 syllables are uttered with some efforts of the vocal cords and the speech mechanism. A, this is the first syllable. It is uttered with mouth fully open. It is an open syllable. U is uttered with mouth half closed. And Ma, that's the third syllable, is uttered with mouth completely closed. So you can find these 3 syllables, A, U and Ma, actually consist of the entire speech mechanism. It's called in Sanskrit Shabda Prapanchaha, means the world of speech mechanism. So whatever we can speak in any language, not only in Sanskrit, though this analysis is more closely based on the speech mechanism in Sanskrit language. But all the sounds and syllables and diphthongs and consonants that we can utter in any language in this world can be included in this mechanism. Some words, some syllables may be uttered with mouth fully open, some little more opened, some still a little more opened, and some syllables are uttered with mouth half opened, and some syllables with mouth completely closed. Now, There is nothing in this world, no sound system that you can pronounce beyond this periphery, beyond this range. Now, what is this world? Anything in this world, whatever object that you can think of, you can name, you can conceive of, is nothing but a word and a corresponding object. When you think of a horse, there are two phenomena that come to your mind. One, the shape of the horse, the form of the horse, and the word that you use to name that horse. Nama and Rupa. The form is called in Sanskrit Nama, the form, and the word is called Rupa. I explained earlier, suppose you see an object, anything in this world, the name of which you do not know. You have never seen that object any time in the past. It's an entirely new substance. You don't know its name. When you're walking, you saw it. That's all. Well, here you have seen the form, but you don't know the corresponding word. You know the Rupa, you don't know the Nama. You know the form, you don't know the name. Somebody can ask the question. Here only form is understood. Name, word is not understood. Well, in that case, how do you recollect that animal after some time? When you see that object, the animal, with your eyes, your mind and eyes come together and you perceive that object, the animal. Well, after some time, you may recollect that experience, seeing that animal in front of you. Here, you may recollect the form, but you do not recollect the name, because you don't know the name of that horse, that animal perhaps. In that case, well, I have seen something, a form, the name of which I do not know. Still, in your mind, there is a corresponding speech mechanism that you form unconsciously to recollect that horse, the animal, the name of which you don't know. I'm just giving an example. If you happen to see an object, an animal, the name of which you do not know, here you can actually recollect only the form with precision, not the name, because the name you do not know at all. In that case, you may recollect the form clearly, but you may not be able to recollect the name because the name is unknown to you. But in your mind, the moment you recollect that form, simultaneously a thought process is taking place. Well, it is an animal, the name of which I do not know. That is the name you give it. Without a corresponding word mechanism, you can never recollect or objectify anything in this world. So the entire phenomenal world, the empirical world, is nothing but a combination of name and form. And name and form, they correspond. They are related to each other. The name corresponds to the form. Now, this Upanishad tells you, whatever objects you pursue, you cognize, you experience, you interact with in this phenomenal world, in this empirical world, is nothing but a word, a speech mechanism, and its corresponding object. So, Omkara consists of the entire speech mechanism. But as I said earlier, A, U, Ma, these three syllables constitute Onkara. Onkara consists of these 3 syllables. So, whatever you experience, you interact with, you objectify in this world, corresponds to Onkara. So, Onkara means empirical world. An empirical world is within time, space and causation. These words, idam sarvam om iti etat aksharam. Whatever you see, idam sarvam here means whatever you experience, whatever, when you look around, you see. When you use your ears, you hear. When you use your sense of touch, you perceive things through touch, through smell, and also through taste. So these are the 5 senses and mind together, which together you cognize, you understand the external world, the empirical world. So all these correspond to Onkara. Now here, the first part of the mantra says, Omidi edat aksharamidam sarvam tasya upavyakhyanam. So, this is the explanation. Bhutam bhavat bhavishyat. Bhutam means the past, whatever exists in the past. Bhavat means whatever exists right now in front of you, the present. And bhavishyat means whatever is going to exist in future. So the past, present and future, whatever belongs to time, whatever is within time, is Onkara. Sarva means everything that belongs to time, everything that is finite, that is not infinite but finite. It is Onkara. Yacha anya trikala atidam. Trikala atidam. Trikala means 3 principles of time. The past, present and future. These are trikala. Atidam means beyond. So whatever is beyond time, tadapi, that also is Onkara. So you can never think of anything in this world which is neither phenomenal nor nominal. Whatever is empirical, phenomenal is Onkara, and whatever is transcendental, that also is Onkara. Means the entire existence is Onkara itself. This is the explanation. Now remember, this Onkara is, in fact, it was a kind of meditative process in ancient India among Vedantins. What is the meaning of this universe? What's the meaning of existence? What is the origin of the universe? What is the sustaining principle of this universe? What is going to be the destiny of the universe? In this inquiry, they came to realize one supreme truth: the point of origination, the sustaining principle, and the point of dissolution of this universe is one reality. And that reality is the immanent reality residing in everything in this universe. And that is the omnipresent reality, and that is also the transcendental reality. So what is within is also outside. Reality is one, that is immanent. It is present in everything and everybody. It is omnipresent. It is all-pervading. It is also transcendental. So the first mantra, the first verse tells us that whatever you can conceive of, whether within time or beyond time, is nothing but Onkara itself. Onkara corresponds to the entire existence that you can conceive of, either as the phenomenal or the transcendental, the empirical or the transcendental, the empirical or the trans-empirical, as Kant would have used, that which beyond. Everything is Onkara itself. The only difference is, a great idealist like Kant said, this reality is transcendental. It cannot be known. It is unknown and unknowable. Vedanta says this reality is transcendental, but it can be known. It cannot be objectified. You cannot see that reality. You cannot experience that reality as you experience or cognize the empirical phenomena. But it is your own inner nature, your own true nature. So, it is within yourself. It is non-different and non-distinct from your own real nature. You cannot objectify it. In that sense, you cannot know it. Because normally, at empirical level, whenever we speak of knowledge, we normally mean objectification of a phenomenal entity. That's what we call knowledge. I see something. That object becomes objectified by me, who am the subject. And the process of knowing is called knowledge. But Vedanta says this reality is transcendental. It cannot be known as empirical phenomenal things can be known. But it is our own inner nature. It can be experienced. It can be realized as the immanent reality present in all of us. So that is the idea behind. So the first mantra, as I said earlier, tells us this much. Reality is one. It is immanent. It is all-pervading. It is transcendental. At the same time, whatever we can think of within time, that is Trikala Adhina, means within time. That which originates some time in the past, that which exists for some time in the present, and that will vanish, disappear sometime in future. These objects are within time. They are non-different from Omkara. And whatever is beyond time, the infinite, the eternal, the transcendental, the trans-empirical, that also is Omkara, because Omkara signifies the entire gamut of existence. That's what the first mantra explains. Now, another request is the second mantra. Second mantra says, Sarvam hi etad Brahma. Ayam Atma Brahma. Soyam Atma Chaduspad. The importance of the second mantra is this. This mantra contains the great statement, the grand statement, which is called Mahavakya, which belongs to the Atharveda Veda Mahavakya. Ayam Atma Brahma. This Upanishad tells you this much. The reality that was mentioned in the previous mantra, the reality which is beyond time and also within time, it is yourself. It exists within you. That all-pervading reality, which is the point of origination of the universe, which is the sustaining principle of the universe, which is the point of dissolution of the universe, that reality is within you. It is not somewhere outside, it is within you. That's why it says, Etat Sarvam Brahmahi, that's the meaning. Everything that you see around is Brahman. Somebody may perhaps be perplexed. All that you see around is Brahman. Well, the world is Brahman. The world not as the world as we see it, but the world devoid of name and form is Brahman. And remember, the world is a world only when it is perceived in association with name and form. The world is Brahman itself when it is perceived not in association with name and form. When you look at Brahman through the prism of name and form of time, space and causation, putting in another way, when you pursue Brahman through the prism of name and form or time, space and causation, then that Brahman is perceived to be the world. When you pursue the world without any association with name and form, the world itself is realized to be Brahman. For a knower of Brahman, there is nothing other than Brahman. When we look around, when he looks around, he sees everything as non-different and non-distinct from Brahman itself, the ultimate reality itself. For an ignorant person who is not aware of the fundamental teachings of Vedanta, everything is world alone. For a liberated soul, for an enlightened soul, everything is Brahman alone. Between these two extreme points, there are people who are trying to make inquiry. What is the nature of the world? For them, the world may appear to be beyond description. It may appear to be something of a dilemma, something which is inexplicable, indescribable, beyond description, something to be investigated into, inquired into. But for the liberated, the highly enlightened, spiritually liberated soul, there is no world, only Brahman, only the absolute reality. For the most ignorant person, there is no Brahman, world alone. That's me. So the second mantra says, this Brahman, this reality is within you. So it points the finger right towards you. So Ayam Atma Brahma actually means, see, this Atma is yourself. Really means what? It pointing the finger right to your heart, as I explained when I was taking this mantra. The reality that we are talking about as the all-pervading reality is the residing principle, the immanent principle existing in all of us. It is not something outside, it is right within every being. So, Soyam Atma Chadushpad. And this Atma consists of 4 levels. 4 pada here means, Chadushpad means 4 quarters. This reality is perceived at different levels in the waking state, in the dream state, in the deep sleep state, and also in the highest transcendental state. So, during the waking state, this reality is perceived with our 5 senses of perception and mind. And in dream state, it is perceived exclusively through mind. And in deep sleep state, nothing is perceived. But there is always a feeling and experience of infinite bliss within. These are the first 3 quarters. And the last one is not a state, it is the real state of the absolute reality, which is Turiya. So, the first one is Vishwa, second one Taijasa, third one Prajna, fourth one Turiya. So, that is the explanation. And as I said earlier, the great commentator says, these 4 quarters do not make Brahman. These 4 quarters are 4 different levels of approaching the reality. 4 different levels of approaching the reality. It is not that, we should not think that the reality, Brahman, is divided into 4 quarters. No. In fact, they are 4 levels of approaching, realizing the supreme reality. So, these are the explanations which somebody asked, somebody requested for an explanation of the first and second mantras that I have done. If you have got any doubt, you can ask later. Now we will go to the second chapter, Vaidyathya Prakaranam, that is verse number 24. We have already explained the first part of this 24th verse. Mana iti manovidaha buddhiridi chatadvidaha. So, first we said there are people who are materialists. They think everything is a matter of mental speculation, mental vibration. So we have to remember, as I said earlier, from 20 to 28th verse, that is, in 9 verses, Gaudapada is giving a brief description of 35 types of superimpositions, representing 35 different philosophical views prevailing during his period, around 6th or 5th century AD. Of these 35 views, about 20 views represent well-defined philosophical approaches and analysis. About 9 of them are just references to certain fringe groups which were not well-defined philosophical schools, but some groups, some views which were expressed by different schools of thought. So, the 23rd superimposition, chittamidi cha tadvidaha. Chittam. Chittam here is a technical term that we have to understand. If you read Sanskrit dictionary, Mone Williams or somebody, you find chittam is sometimes defined, explained as mind. But here, it is not mind alone that is implied here. Chittam is a technical term used by a school of Buddhist philosophers. They are called the subjective idealist of Buddhist school. As I said earlier, in the later Buddhism, there were 4 distinct schools of thoughts. 2 schools of realists and 2 schools of idealists. The 2 schools of realists were the Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas, who believed that external objects are real. Their momentariness is a fundamental philosophical view held by Buddhists in general. So they believed, though external objects are momentary, they do have a reality. They do have the status of reality. But the other 2 schools, the 2 schools of idealists, did not accept that the external objects are real. They were called, in Sanskrit, they were called Shunyavadins, the school of Shunyavada, I mean the school of void or emptiness. And the school of subjective idealism is called Vijnanavada. Chittamidi chittavidaha. In this mantra, in this part of the verse, Gaudapada is referring to the subjective idealists of Buddhists. It was a very popular and elaborate, intricate philosophical system. You have to remember, see, whatever Berkeley said about during the last, around 150 years, 200 years back, were all anticipated by the subjective idealists of Buddhism. See, subjective idealism of Buddhism developed around 2nd or 3rd century AD. And there are hundreds of books, remember, not dozens, hundreds of books. And they are having scores of philosophers. Right from 1st or 2nd century AD up to 8th century AD, there have been hundreds of philosophers who held different views. belonging to the school of subjective idealism. They believed that external objects are absolutely unreal. Then how do we perceive different objects? How can you say that what you perceive, what you see, what you hear is non-existent? They say that all these ideas exist within the mind. This mind, it is not really mind. The word they used is chittam, it is called. Chittam is a technical term used by this school of philosophy, subjective ideals. They use different terms, vijñapti, vijñanam, chittam, etc. So in this chittam, repository of impressions and tendencies, all the impressions and tendencies of different objects that you see are already stored. When you see an object in front of you, these tendencies, corresponding tendencies, come to the surface and they connect. So you see an object. You can ask the question, without the emergence of a corresponding object in the external world, these tendencies do not come to the surface. So, these tendencies do not come to the surface without some stimuli from external world. They have no clear answer to this question. Okay, Vijnanavada is no more a prominent school of philosophy. For sure, there are many Vijnanavadins, of course, but it is not so popular. So this is what is implied here. Chittamidi chittavidaha. That's so Gaudapada is referring to the subjective idealists or one of the two schools of idealism in Buddhism. Then dharma adharmo cha tadvidaha. Now, here also you have to remember, dharma here doesn't mean what it implies in Buddhism. Here, dharma means what the books allow you to do. The books of, we call smriti books. There are certain books which are roughly similar to modern constitutions. A number of books containing do's and don'ts, imperatives. You must do puja in this manner. You must perform a Vedic sacrifice in this specified manner. You should not do in this manner. So do's and don'ts. So what is allowed by these books is called dharma. What is not allowed is called adharma, the opposite. So this school of philosophers were called Mimamsakas. They interpreted Vedas as books which contain only rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, injunctions and denials, certain strong rules and regulations which the individual, the family, the society should follow. They did not give much importance to God. Some of their philosophers denied God. Some of them, of course, accepted God. But they said that whatever you do will produce its result. There is no need of a God as the distributor of the results of your actions. Whatever you do will automatically produce its result. Of course, Shankaracharya refuted all these schools of thought in the sense he accepted some of their ideas, but he proved that this system of philosophy is full of some inherent drawbacks. But anyhow, we have to remember dharma, adharma, dharma and adharma. Dharma means what the scriptures allow you to do. Adharma means what the scriptures do not allow you to do. So according to these people, you follow certain rules and regulations given in the books. Mostly the karma kanda, the ritualistic portion of the Vedic literature. Means the Brahmanas and the Samhitas. That's all. So according to these philosophers, God doesn't play a very important role. Some of them denied God, some of them accepted. Of course, there were two distinct schools of thought, Kumarila Bhatta and Prabhakara. They were two prominent philosophers. Jaimini was the chief exponent of this school of philosophy, which is known as the Mimamsa philosophy. Another name is Purva Mimamsa. They did not give much importance to the spiritual or philosophical teachings of the Upanishads or Vedanta. They said more like, I would say, the ancient Jewish priestcraft who interpreted scriptures literally and tried to follow them literally. In fact, the Mimamsa school in some ways corresponds to the pre-Christian, the pre-Christ Hebraic lawgivers and their teachings. That's actually. So that's one. So then again, we are coming to this. So the verse, if you want explanation, mana iti manovidaha buddhihi iti tadvidaha chittamidi chittavidaha dharma dharmo iti tadvidaha. This ahu. In those who are interested in learning the portion, you have to add the word ahu, Sanskrit word, means they say, they proclaim, they make the statement, should be added to this mantra. Then only this verse becomes complete, literally. So the point is this: some materialists believe that mind is everything, and mind is nothing but a combination of speculations. They say these speculations are of two types. When you approach an object from a distance, you may think, well, that object is perhaps the figure of a man. If there is not enough light, if you are seeing the object in darkness, or you may think it's a pillar. So could it be the figure of a man, or could it be a wall or a pillar? Such mutually contradictory thought currents come to your mind, flash through your mind. This phenomenon, this entity in which mutually conflicting thought currents come and go is called mind. So according to some school of ancient Indian materialists or Indian school of materialism, mind is everything. There is nothing beyond mind. I already explained this earlier. Buddhi, this view was held by another school of Buddhists, but they were not so prominent as the Vijnanavadins and Shunyavadins, so I already explained. Now we will come to the 26th verse. The 26th verse says, Panjavimshaga ityeke Shadvimsha idicha apare Eka trimshaga ityahu Ananda idicha apare. Now here, this is 25th superimposition, 25th school of thought which Gaudapada refers to. Panjavimshaga means 25. It means 25. In fact, they were a school of philosophers who were dualists. They were called Sankhya philosophy. Perhaps many of the students of Indian philosophy even now study Sankhya school of philosophy, one of the most ancient school of philosophical systems. The earliest textbook, well-known textbook of Sankhya philosophy dates back almost 1800 BC. You find according to those who specialize in comparative philosophy, many of these teachings are found in the teachings of 7th century Greek philosopher Thales. Many of these ideas originally found in the Sankhya system of philosophy are found. Many of they called philosophical parallelisms, not that one borrowed from the other. Very often, simultaneously identical or uniform philosophical ideas can emerge in countries and lands separated by thousands of miles. So the 26th verse, the first school mentioned here is the Sankhyas. They believe in 25 categories. Now, we have to remember, before going further, I shall speak a few words about the Sankhya school of philosophy. They are essentially dualists. A school of philosophy which accepts more than one absolute category may be called dualists. Not that they should believe only in two absolute categories. Conventionally, a school of philosophical system which accepts more than one absolute, eternal, fundamental category is called school of dualism. So all pluralists are dualists. In literary sense, dualists believe only in two fundamental categories. But conventional sense, all pluralists can be called dualists. Now, they believe in two fundamental categories to begin with. One is Purusha, the other is Prakriti. These are the two absolutely fundamental categories which they accept. Purusha is consciousness. But this Purusha doesn't participate in the evolution of the universe. It is conscious, but it is practically inactive. The second category is called Prakriti. Another name is Pradhana. Prakriti consists of three character types. You may have called Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna, Tamo-guna. Sattva-guna corresponds to knowledge, Rajo-guna corresponds to action, and Tamo-guna corresponds to ignorance, sleepishness, inactivity, and so on. And they believe that Purusha is inactive, the entire phenomenal world evolves out of Prakriti. So Prakriti is the category, and everything that you perceive in the empirical world is an evolute of Prakriti. Another name that you may come across in philosophical books is Pradhana. And from this Prakriti, all the five senses of perception, five senses of action, mind, intellect, the ego sense, all the entire universe evolves out of this Prakriti. Mahat, Ahankara, Tanmatra, five organs of intellect, five organs of action, mind, and five Mahabhutas, etc. So, and the Purusha I already mentioned, these are the 25 categories of Sankhya philosophers. Gaudapada is referring to the Sankhya philosophers in his verse Panchavimshaka, means 25. I'm just, I don't think I need to go very elaborately along this system. But the point to remember is, during the period in which the author of this text lived, that is Gaudapada lived during his time, there were innumerable schools of thoughts who believed who held various views which were all in conflict with the views of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. And Gaudapada is referring to all these 35 schools of philosophical ideas just to show you how inadequate and how absolutely unacceptable these views are. And then he will show that the only logically sound and acceptable school of thought is the view of Advaita, which is rational, which is at the same time based on our own intuitive experience. And Shankaracharya in his commentary has given detailed descriptions of the logical fallacies of these 35 schools of philosophical ideas, indirectly, because Shankaracharya doesn't write any commentary on any of the 9 verses which gives a list of these 35 systems. But through the text, whenever the context comes, Shankara refutes the views of the 4 schools of Buddhists, the ritualists, the Sankhyas and others who held different views, who believed that the world is, or the reality is more than one. So now our time is already up. There may be 5 or 10 minutes. If you have got anything to ask, any need for clarification, I shall try to explain, and then we'll close. Somebody had made this request to explain the first 2 mantras, so it took some time. But if there is any question based on what I explained, we can try, we can ask. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Order.